In this video, I'm going to share with you the email secret that no one is telling you about. What I'm about to share with you could potentially change the game for your business. Email marketing in today's day and age is still what I believe to be the most effective way to add substantial amounts of profit to your business. It is also the single biggest area that almost all of our clients don't even pay attention to before they start working with us. And the reason I share this and the reason that's so important to understand how to do email marketing properly is because if you're bringing leads into your business and you are not nurturing them, you are missing out on acres of diamonds sitting right underneath your nose. In fact, in our business, we have 3.5x our profitability just by emailing our list compared to if we didn't and only relied on ads by itself. So the consequences of not emailing your list are dramatic on the negative side, and the benefits of doing so are also dramatic on the positive side. So if you want to help more people, enroll more clients, make a lot more money at a significant profit, remember, if you're running ads, you've already paid for these leads. You're better off converting them into paying customers or clients by using email the right way. The problem though is most people don't email their list. They don't know how to email their list, and they get tripped up worrying about the wrong things. So what I want to share with you here is something I've not really ever heard anyone talk about. And actually this was prompted by a client recently asking me, Yuri, what's the best email open rate and click-through rate I should be looking at, amongst my broadcast/nurture emails? And my answer to that question was a big all caps, it depends. It depends on a number of factors. And that's what I want to walk you through here. I'm going to draw some stuff out of the iPad to give you better context of how to make sense of this question and how to more effectively use email to your advantage to help more people, okay? So the first thing I want to draw here on the iPad is what I call the commitment conversion conundrum. What I mean by that is if we look at the graph here, on the y-axis, we have CVR, which stands for conversion rate, and on the x-axis, we have commitment. So essentially what happens is that when you increase the commitment required of someone, the conversion rate typically goes down. And a lot of marketers see that as a bad thing. I see it as a completely amazing thing, and I'm going to explain to you why. So you can use this context or this framework for any conversion mechanism online. So that can be a landing page as an example. The more commitment you have on a landing page, for instance, name, email, phone number, mailing address, etc., the more of those you put on a landing page, what's going to happen? The conversion rate's going to go down. Why is that? Because a lot of people don't want to provide as much information versus if you only asked for email up here, you're going to have a much higher conversion rates. Make sense? So you can think of this within that lens as we think about what we're discussing here. So let's talk about email for a second. The most important thing to remember with respect to email is you have to ask yourself two questions. Question number one is, what's the objective of this email? Okay, so that's the first question. What is the objective of this email? And the second question is, where are they going next? So when they click on a link, if there's a link in the email, where are they going next? Because where they end up has a big impact on what type of email you should be using. So I'll come back to this graph in a second, but let's just use the example of two different scenarios because we have email number one and we have, let me just redraw that, email number two. Okay, so in email number one, we have the scenario of very short copy, right? And then there's like some type of call to action. And then email two, we have very long copy, very, very, very long email, and maybe a call to action at the bottom. I want to set the stage by giving you those two parameters because all the emails you send are going to be a combination of one or the other of those, right? Whether you have a lot of content or not, or if it's a pure pitch, it doesn't matter. If it's a long email or a short email, it's going to dramatically influence one of those metrics we talked about or alluded to, which is click-through rate. So I'm going to come back to that in a second. Click-through rate, CTR. The first one we want to look at is open rates. So what is the ideal open rate for an email? It really, really depends. It depends on how big your email list. It depends on how specific that email list is, or is it really just an accumulation of all sorts of different niches and all sorts of different lead sources and lead magnets and all sorts of stuff, or is it very, very tight. The bigger the email list is, generally the lower the open rates go down. And also, very, very importantly, not just the subject line. A lot of people talk about subject lines, right? A catchy subject line, use curiosity, benefits, okay? If you want a high open rates on your email subject lines, curiosity and benefit, okay? So I'll come back to this in a second, but one thing we also have to keep in mind is what happened with iOS 14.5. So open rate used to be a useful metric to look at. You send out 100,000 emails, 20,000 people open, you've had a 20% open rate, right? When iOS 14.5 came out about 2 years ago, what basically happened is Apple said, all of our users, we're gonna tell you that they have 100% open rates. So you will not know whether someone opened or not. In reality, all of them opened. And now it's like, well, that doesn't really help, right? So now we don't really know the true open rate. But instead of freaking out, the reality is who cares? Because as long as you're comparing apples to apples, it's all good. So let's say that really your real open rate is 20% if we were before iOS 14.5. But now because Apple's telling you everyone has opened, which they really haven't, but they're telling you they have, just for privacy reasons, your open rate now, when you look at your email service provider, whether it's Entreport, ActiveCampaign, MailChimp, whatever, is telling you 30%. So you know that 30% is not the real open rate, but who cares? Because if all of your emails are in reference to the kind of true open rate, then it's all the same. Because if you're sending emails to your list and it's 30%, then 32%, then 24%, then 45%, at least it's consistent. You're comparing apples to apples, so you can look at which subject lines are getting better opens. But the second, and I think the most important thing that takes a long time to build, is character. Let me give you this example. Think of your favorite Hollywood actor. Let's call it Brad Pitt, okay? If Brad Pitt sends you an email, does it even matter what the subject line is? No. It can be brackets, no subject. It can be hi. It doesn't matter. The reason you would open that email is because it's Brad Pitt. And this is one of the most fundamental truths that I hope you get from this video, is that almost in all aspects of marketing, it is the messenger that is more important than the message. It is the character that is more important than the content. So yeah, we can play all sorts of gimmicky things with our subject lines, but fundamentally, if people don't give a shit about hearing from you because they don't even know you, for instance, why would they want to open the email? So I share this with you because the goal over time, if we look at time, and let's say KLT being know, like, and trust / character development, if you will, what happens is if you are frequent with emailing people and you are consistent with your omnipresence, like you are always in front of your audience, so they start to be like, they just see you all the time. What that does is it increases over time. That's why I talk about this all the time. Longevity is the most important superpower you can build in your business. I've been in business for 18 years. Like, we have clients that are like, yeah, like I followed Yuri's workout programs 12 years ago and I bought this book from like whenever. That all helps. It builds who you are as a personality, as a messenger, as a character, so that people are more receptive to listening to your message. And therefore the message, although is very, very important, what is more important in my belief is the character that you develop over time. And the best way to build your character, another way to think about this, is your brand is just being in the game for a very, very long time, okay? Think about this. If Brad Pitt was, an up and coming actor and no one really knew about him, but he played in a small role in a small film, would you have the same connection to that name? No. But now everyone knows who he is. So there's this status, there's this brand that has been built, and therefore his character trumps whatever it is he says. And this is the thing a lot of people don't think about, is they look at all these influencers online and, people posting very elementary type of quotables, like drinking water first thing in the morning is really good for you. And the thing is 1,000 shares. You're like, what the fuck? That's the most useless piece of information I've seen today. But because it was posted by a really famous doctor, everyone gives a shit. Does that make sense? And so the thing I want you to understand here, and this is why it's so important to play the long game, is that you as the messenger is infinitely more important than your message. Now here's the trump side. Here's the flip side to this. In order for you to become an effective messenger, you have to be clear about your message, and you have to repeat it over and over and over and over again in such a way that people actually give a shit about what you're talking about. And you keep doing that for years, not days, not weeks, not months, years, probably even decades. And eventually you will be the messenger that people actually want to hear about. So going back to our question, what is the ideal open rate for an email? It depends. If you're a no one and no one knows you, then your open rate is relative to that. But if you're a famous, guru in the space, your open rate will probably be higher because people want to hear from you. So with all that said, I think you should be shooting for open rates minimum of around 25%, if not more. That's a starting point. But again, if you've got a super small list of friends and family, you'll have an open rate of 75%. But if you've acquired leads coming in from Facebook ads, which is cold traffic, you might have a lower open rate than warm leads who've watched all your videos on YouTube. As an example, these questions are very contextual based on all these different factors. So if we think about that as an example, we come back to this conversion, commitment, conundrum spectrum. Think about this. If you have watched all of my videos on YouTube, that is a very, very high degree of commitment, okay? Now, in the context of conversion rates, it's less applicable there. But what I do want to mention is there's one more factor that a lot of people don't think about here, is that the higher the commitment, the higher quality prospect you're dealing with. So I'm not saying the conversion rate's going to go up, although it will go up ultimately. So if you've watched all my videos, the likelihood of you coming onto an enrollment call with us and being like, I've watched every single video yours ever put out, I'm ready to get started. That conversion rates, if we compare that to someone who's like, I don't even know what you guys do, is through the roof. And that's because you have committed hours upon hours upon hours of your time to consume my stuff. Thank you, right? It also means that the likelihood that you will convert is much higher than someone who's never seen me ever before. Does that make sense? So although the commitment we are asking of someone can be greater, it also means they're usually a better qualified prospect. So let's come back to the nature of the email, the conversation of emails here. Let's look, I'm just going to remove the open rate stuff here. So we had two examples. We had short email and long email, email 1, email 2. And remember I said, what's the objective of the email? That's question number 1. What is the objective of the email? So there's two things that can happen really. In the nature and the context of an email, we have to think of, okay, where are they going next? So think of this. You have an email and there's a link in the email for them to click. They click that link. Where do they go next? Are they going to a blog post, a YouTube video, a webinar? Are they going to book a call on the next page? Are they going to a social media post? That's very, very important to consider, because then you have to ask yourself the next question, which is, okay, well, what's the next page they're going to? Because they're going to go somewhere. And then you have to ask the question, is that destination doing more or less of the heavy lifting? So I'll give you an example. When is it right to use short email versus long email? And let's talk about click-through rates. In the example of very, very short emails, I'm talking about 1 or 2 sentences with a link. You will have high CTR. You will have a higher click-through rate. Just like with your Facebook ads, if you have 1 sentence and a link, you'll have a higher CTR. You'll have a lower cost per click. But there's a caveat. We'll come back to this. In the long email, you will have a lower CTR, less clicks. But is that bad? It depends. So what does it depend on? It depends on what the next step is. So I'll give you an example from our business. On Sundays, we email our list about the newest YouTube video. That email is generally 1 sentence and a link. That's it. Why? Because the only thing I want you, if you're on my email list, to do is click that link and come watch this video. That's it. I don't need to tell a whole story. I don't need to prime you up, because I know the longer the email is, the lower the clicks are. Remember, what's the objective? If my objective is to get as many views as quickly as possible, then I want an email that's going to get the highest number of clicks. So I'm going to use a short email, 1 to 2 sentences. That's it. I don't need to build this whole story and prime and qualify you. No, benefit, frustration, whatever it is, watch this, that's it. Now, that's where I would use a short email. Let's contrast that with, let's say the next page or the objective of the email was for you to book a call to work with us. And if the email was, hey Joe, want to get more clients? Click here to book a call with us. I'll get more clicks for sure. But what's going to happen on the next page? If that next page doesn't do a lot of heavy lifting, like as an example, if that booking page was apply to work with us, schedule your call below, and then a scheduling calendar. If that was it, here's what's going to happen. I will likely either have people who land on the page and like, I didn't even know what I was clicking on, so I'm out of here. Or 2, we'll get more calls booked that will be unqualified and we'll have to cancel them. Because on that page, the page has not done much of the heavy lifting to qualify or pre-indoctrinate the people landing on that page. So what ends up happening is we get more calls booked with less qualified people. Again, we go back to here. Little commitments means less qualified primed prospects. So enter email number 2. A long form, long ass email, as you want to call, if you want to call it that. So recently I sent out an email and the email subject line was, this email is going to hurt, in brackets, read at your own peril or something along those lines. And the first sentence of the email was, warning, this will be the longest email you read from me in a long time. And in a Google Doc, it was 5 pages. Okay, so it's a very long email. Now, what was the objective of that email? That email was very specifically crafted to say, listen, if you're not working with us, there's one of 5 reasons. Let's talk about what's going on here. Let's cut the shit. It's like shit or get off the pot. That was the type of email. It's 5 pages long. And I, did the thing. And I knew going into that, here's what's going to happen, because the next page I'm sending people to is not doing a lot of the heavy lifting, right? It's a headline, a couple of qualifiers, and then the booking calendar. So I knew that if I want the right people booking a call with us, the right people who are ready to get started now, not like curious, I needed that email to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So that email, 5 pages long, which is really overkill, to be honest. You don't have to write 5-page emails. But I knew here's what was going to happen. And I told my team, I'm like, guys, this email is going to produce a very small number of calls, but I guarantee you the calls that are coming from this email, a higher percentage of them will become paying clients. And that was the objective of the email, is I'm like, I don't need 500 calls booked. I just need a couple calls booked with people who are like, yep, let's go. Because again, if you've read the book Persuasion by Robert Cialdini, you have to. You'll understand that what people see before the offer dramatically affects the conversion of the offer. And that's coming back to what we've talked about here. If there's no commitment over here, yeah, we'll get a higher conversion rate. We'll get more clicks. We'll get more people booking calls. We'll get more people opting in. But they're not the right people to ultimately convert into paying clients. Generally speaking, if you have no barrier to entry and you got people booking calls without jumping through hoops, you will have lower quality prospects. You'll have more people canceling and no-showing your calls, and you will waste a lot more of your time with people who don't even know what it is you do. So we want to balance that off where, in some cases, does that make sense? Well, listen, if you've got a podcast and you want people to listen to it, send an email with 1 sentence and a link, go listen to the podcast. But if it's a conversion-based event and you want to make sure that the right people are taking action and the destination page is not doing a lot of the heavy lifting, then the email has to. Now, there is one situation where you could send a very short email with a conversion-based event. And that is in the situation where you're sending them to a long page that does all the heavy lifting. So if you sent them to a sales page selling some products, short email, go to the page does all the selling. If you sent a short email to a booking a call page, again, that page should do a lot of the qualifying, a lot of the priming, and only at the bottom give them the opportunity to book a call if they meet those criteria, okay? So in that email, you will have higher click-through rates, you'll have a greater drop-off on the page, but those people who are moving all the way down are more qualified than if you had a short email, a simple page with no qualifiers on it, and now you have a lot of people booking calls who you end up canceling or don't show because they're not qualified, there's no commitment, etc. Okay? I hope this is making sense because no one talks about this. And I hope you're understanding that to answer the question of what's the best open rate, what's the best click-through rate is such an elementary question that if you're asking, that's fine. But hopefully you're starting to think differently about this because the answer is it depends. In marketing, the answer is always test. The answer is always it depends based on context. There's so many factors that have to be involved here. What's the ideal click-through rate? Whatever, 10% would be amazing. If you're hitting 5%, cool. But who cares? 5% click-through rate that produces no results, what's the point? So if you get a 10% click-through rate because you use a short email and then it went to a page that didn't do what it needed to do, so you don't get the conversions, what's the point? So you always have to think of what's the objective and then what is the next page or destination people are landing on. So anyways, I hope this video gets your head turning a little bit and gives you more insight into how we make decisions with respect to email marketing. Because again, email marketing is a massively important aspect of your business. And listen, don't overthink it. Do not overthink it. in general, I would not overdo short emails. I would rather send longer emails that people read, consume. If there's a click, whatever, that's fine. But a lot of times it's just the very fact that they're consuming your stuff that is going to help to build your character over time. And then when you do have calls to action, short emails with a click or longer emails with a click, more people are willing to take that action because they know, like, and trust you, as opposed to never even hearing from you. The one thing I can say with a little bit more objectiveness is the more often you email your list, the better it's going to be for your business. I'm not saying you have to email 3 times a day, but you definitely should be emailing your list. And I don't like using the word should, but honestly, if you care about growing your business and helping more people, 3 days a week is a good cadence. Add value, call to action. Add value, call to action. If you email your list once a month, they'll be like, who are you? They won't even remember your name. You have to be top of mind and you have to be in their inbox. You have to be present, because when they are ready, if you are not there, they're not going to choose you. They're going somewhere else. Cool? So I would love to know if you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what has really jumped out at you the most in the comments below. And if you want more on email marketing, watch the next video. I'm going to walk you through some really cool stuff, a really simple structure you can use for sending out more of your what we call newsletter nurture type of emails. And I'll share that with you in the next video. So watch that next, leave me a comment below, and thanks for hanging out, and hope you enjoyed this one.